Have you ever wondered why your life doesn't change, even when you desperately want it to? The answer lies not in your circumstances, but in the patterns etched deep within your mind. True transformation begins when you understand that your thoughts shape your reality. The ancient wisdom of "be transformed by the renewing of your mind" holds profound truth that modern psychology validates. Joseph Murphy, renowned author of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, revealed that your subconscious mind is like fertile soil. Whatever you plant through repeated thoughts and beliefs will inevitably grow into your lived experience. He taught that by consciously impressing new ideas upon your subconscious through visualization, affirmation, and feeling, you can literally reprogram your automatic responses and attract different outcomes. Dr. Joseph Murphy, the author of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, said that transformation begins when you learn to plant new, positive thoughts into your subconscious. Murphy believed that your mind is like fertile soil. Whatever ideas you consistently sow will eventually take root and shape your experiences. By consciously affirming good, success, love, and peace, you align your mental patterns with divine truth and attract those very conditions into your life. In this video, you will learn practical steps to renew your mind daily, replace negative thinking with empowering beliefs, and activate spiritual transformation. Discover how faith, repetition, and positive visualization can reshape your inner world, and ultimately, your destiny. You must understand at the very outset that transformation is not something that happens to you from the outside, but rather something that emerges from within you through the deliberate and continuous renewal of your mind. And this renewal is not a single act, but a perpetual process of replacing old thought patterns with new ones, old beliefs with new beliefs, old mental images with new mental images. And when you truly grasp this fundamental principle, you will begin to see that everything you have experienced in your life up to this moment, every circumstance, every condition, every relationship, every success, and every failure has been the direct result of the thoughts you have habitually entertained in your mind. The Bible tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, and this is not merely poetic language or religious instruction, but a precise statement of psychological and spiritual law. For your mind is the only creative medium you possess. And whatever you impress upon your subconscious mind with feeling and conviction will be expressed in your outer world as condition, circumstance, and experience. Many people go through life blaming external forces for their problems. They blame the economy, they blame their parents, they blame their education, they blame their circumstances, they blame other people. But the truth that you must accept if you are to be transformed is that your outer world is always a perfect reflection of your inner world. Your conditions are always a mirror of your consciousness, and if you wish to change what you see in the mirror, you must change what stands before it. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that his life was filled with limitation and lack, that he could never seem to get ahead, no matter how hard he worked. And when Dr. Murphy asked him to describe his habitual thoughts, the man revealed that he constantly worried about money, that he repeatedly affirmed to himself that he could never have enough, that he looked at wealthy people with resentment and told himself that prosperity was not for people like him. And Dr. Murphy explained to him that his outer poverty was simply the manifestation of his inner poverty, that his subconscious mind was faithfully reproducing in his experience exactly what he had planted there through his habitual thinking. The transformation begins the moment you accept full responsibility for your mental diet, for the thoughts you allow to dwell in your mind, for the beliefs you carry about yourself and about life. And when you understand that your subconscious mind accepts whatever you consciously impress upon it, whether it be true or false, good or bad, constructive or destructive, you will realize that you have been given dominion over your entire experience through the simple but profound act of choosing your thoughts deliberately and persistently. Your subconscious mind is like soil that accepts any seed you plant within it, and it does not question whether the seed you plant is good or bad, beneficial or harmful, true or false. It simply accepts the seed and begins the process of germination and growth. And this is why you must become the watchman at the gate of your mind, carefully selecting which thoughts you will allow to take root and which thoughts you will reject before they can penetrate into your deeper mind. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been suffering from chronic health problems for years, that she had visited countless doctors and tried numerous treatments, but nothing seemed to help. And when Dr. Murphy questioned her about her self-talk and her habitual mental patterns, she admitted that she constantly referred to "my arthritis" and "my condition," and that she would tell people repeatedly about her suffering and her limitations, claiming ownership of her illness as if it were a cherished possession. And Dr. Murphy instructed her that she must stop claiming the illness as her own, that she must cease watering this poisonous seed with her attention and her words, that she must instead begin to affirm perfect health and vitality, impressing upon her subconscious mind the image of herself as whole and complete and radiantly healthy. The renewal of your mind requires that you become aware of the thoughts you have been thinking unconsciously, the beliefs you have inherited from your parents, your culture, your religious training, your past experiences. For many of the thoughts that run through your mind all day long are not your own original thoughts, but rather borrowed thoughts, inherited thoughts, conditioned thoughts, and these thoughts continue to create your experience until you consciously decide to replace them with new thoughts that align with the life you wish to live. You cannot transform your life while continuing to think the same thoughts you have always thought. You cannot create new results with old mental patterns. You cannot build a palace while holding the blueprint of a prison in your mind. And this is why the renewal of your mind is not optional but essential, not a luxury but a necessity, not something you do once but something you must do continuously, daily, hourly, moment by moment, until the new thought patterns become so deeply embedded in your subconscious mind that they operate automatically without conscious effort. The thoughts you think today are creating your tomorrow, and this is not a philosophical speculation but a demonstrable fact that you can verify through your own experience. For if you look back at your life, you will see that every major change in your circumstances was preceded by a change in your thinking. And if you examine your present conditions, you will discover that they are the perfect outgrowth of the mental seeds you planted weeks, months, or years ago. When you understand this principle, you will stop being a victim of circumstance and become a conscious creator of your experience. You will stop reacting to life and begin responding with deliberate intention. You will stop drifting with the current and begin steering your vessel toward the destination you have chosen. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he desperately wanted to advance in his career, but felt blocked at every turn, that his colleagues received promotions while he remained in the same position year after year. And when Dr. Murphy asked him how he saw himself in his mind's eye, the man confessed that he pictured himself as inadequate, as less capable than his peers, as undeserving of success, and that whenever an opportunity arose, he would immediately imagine himself failing or being rejected. And Dr. Murphy showed him that he was sabotaging himself through his own mental imagery, that his subconscious mind was simply fulfilling the orders he gave it through his habitual visualization, and that if he wished to advance, he must first advance in his own mind, seeing himself as confident, capable, and worthy of greater responsibility. The renewal of your mind begins with recognition, with becoming aware of the thoughts that dominate your consciousness, and once you become aware, you can begin the work of replacement, substituting life-giving thoughts for death, dealing thoughts, abundant thoughts for poverty thoughts, healthy thoughts for sick thoughts, loving thoughts for fearful thoughts. And as you persist in this practice of mental renewal, you will find that your outer world begins to rearrange itself to conform to your inner world, that doors open where there were once walls, that opportunities appear where there was once only obstacle, that solutions emerge where there were once only problems. You must understand that your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined experience. And this is the key to transformation. For if you can create in your imagination the experience you desire, if you can feel it and sense it and live it in your mind with conviction and emotional intensity, your subconscious mind will accept this imagined experience as real and will begin to move all the forces of your being toward making it manifest in your outer world. This is not wishful thinking or mere daydreaming, but rather the deliberate use of your imagination as a creative tool, and you must learn to distinguish between these two entirely different mental activities, for wishful thinking is passive and powerless, while creative imagination is active and powerful. Wishful thinking says, "I wish things were different," while creative imagination says, "I am now impressing upon my subconscious mind a clear and definite image of what I desire to experience." A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she lived alone and longed for companionship, that she felt isolated and believed that she would never find a suitable partner. And Dr. Murphy instructed her to begin each day by sitting quietly and imagining herself in a loving relationship, to feel the joy and warmth of mutual affection, to sense the presence of her ideal companion, to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and to do this not once but many times each day until it became more real to her than her present circumstances. And within a few months, she met a man whose qualities matched precisely the image she had been holding in her mind. Your imagination is the workshop where you fashion your future, and every great achievement in human history began as an image in someone's mind. Every invention, every work of art, every business enterprise, every scientific discovery first existed as a mental picture before it became a physical reality, and you possess this same creative faculty. You have within you right now the ability to imagine conditions and circumstances different from those you are currently experiencing. And when you combine your imagination with faith and feeling, when you persist in holding your mental image regardless of present appearances, you set in motion the creative forces that must eventually manifest your desire. The renewal of your mind is accomplished through repetition, through the persistent and systematic impression of new thoughts upon your subconscious mind, and you must be patient with this process while also remaining consistent and unwavering in your practice. For your subconscious mind has been conditioned by years or even decades of habitual thinking. And these old patterns cannot be erased overnight, but must be gradually replaced through the steady application of new mental impressions. Think of your mind as a garden that has been neglected for years, overrun with weeds that have taken deep root, and understand that you cannot transform this garden by simply wishing the weeds away or by a single afternoon of effort. But rather, you must return to the garden day after day, pulling the weeds, preparing the soil, planting good seeds, watering them, protecting them, nurturing them, until eventually the good plants crowd out the weeds and the garden becomes a place of beauty and abundance. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had tried affirmations and positive thinking, but nothing changed in his life. That he had repeated certain statements for a few days or perhaps a few weeks, but saw no results, and concluded that the whole thing was nonsense. And Dr. Murphy explained to him that he had expected instant results without understanding that the subconscious mind requires time to accept and assimilate new patterns. That he had given up just when the new seeds were beginning to germinate beneath the surface, that he had been like a farmer who plants seeds and then digs them up a few days later to see if they are growing, thereby destroying the very thing he wished to cultivate. You must persist in the renewal of your mind not for days or weeks, but for as long as it takes for the new thought patterns to become firmly established. And you will know when this has occurred, because the new thoughts will feel natural and automatic. They will arise spontaneously without effort, and your outer circumstances will begin to reflect the new inner patterns, demonstrating through concrete evidence that the transformation is taking place. The transformation of your mind requires that you guard carefully what you allow to enter your consciousness through your senses, for you are constantly being bombarded with suggestions from the world around you, from newspapers and television and social media, from conversations with negative people, from advertisements designed to create desire and dissatisfaction, from news reports that focus on tragedy and disaster. And all of these external impressions are seeking to plant themselves in your subconscious mind, where they will take root and grow, and eventually manifest as your experience. You must become selective about what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, and whom you associate with, for you cannot fill your mind with thoughts of fear and limitation and expect to experience peace and abundance. You cannot saturate your consciousness with images of violence and suffering and expect to experience harmony and well-being. You cannot spend your time with people who constantly complain and criticize and expect to maintain a positive mental attitude. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she felt anxious and depressed most of the time, that she could not understand why she felt this way because nothing particularly bad was happening in her life. And when Dr. Murphy asked her about her daily habits, she revealed that she watched the news for several hours each day, that she read multiple newspapers filled with stories of crime and corruption and catastrophe, that she engaged in long telephone conversations with friends who spent most of their time gossiping about others and complaining about their own problems. And Dr. Murphy pointed out to her that she was poisoning her mind with negative input, that she was feeding her subconscious mind a steady diet of fear and negativity, and then wondering why she felt fearful and negative. And he instructed her to fast from all news for 30 days, to avoid negative conversations, to read only uplifting and inspirational material, and to spend time in prayer and meditation, impressing her mind with thoughts of peace and joy and gratitude. The renewal of your mind is not simply about adding positive thoughts to your existing thought patterns, but about completely replacing the old with the new, about emptying out the vessel so that it can be filled with something better, about creating a mental environment in which only constructive and life-affirming thoughts are permitted to dwell, and this requires vigilance and discipline, and a willingness to separate yourself from the mass consciousness of fear and limitation that dominates the thinking of the majority of humanity. Your words are the expression of your thoughts, and they also have the power to reinforce and deepen whatever thought patterns you hold in your mind. For when you speak, you are not only communicating with others, but you are also programming your own subconscious mind, and every word you utter is either building up or tearing down, creating or destroying, blessing or cursing, and you must become aware of the words you habitually use and consciously choose words that align with the transformation you desire. Many people sabotage themselves through careless speech. They say, "I can't afford that," when they should say, "I choose to spend my money differently." They say, "I'm so unlucky," when they should say, "I am blessed and fortunate." They say, "I always get sick this time of year," when they should say, "I am healthy and strong and resistant to illness." And these seemingly innocent phrases are actually powerful suggestions that sink deep into the subconscious mind and create the very conditions they describe. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he was struggling financially and could not seem to break free from debt. And as they talked, Dr. Murphy noticed that the man repeatedly used phrases like, "I'm broke," "I'm poor," "I never have enough," and "money just slips through my fingers." And Dr. Murphy explained that these statements were not descriptions of reality, but rather decrees that were creating his reality, that his subconscious mind was receiving these verbal commands and faithfully executing them, bringing about the very poverty he claimed to want to escape. And he taught the man to monitor his speech carefully, to catch himself before speaking words of lack and limitation, and to replace those words with affirmations of abundance and prosperity, such as, "Money flows to me freely and abundantly," and "I am prospered in all my ways." The renewal of your mind must extend to the renewal of your speech. For your words are seeds planted in the garden of your subconscious mind, and you will inevitably reap a harvest that corresponds to the seeds you have sown. And if you wish to reap a harvest of good, you must sow seeds of good through words that affirm, bless, and uplift, rather than words that deny, curse, and tear down. And as you practice speaking only words that correspond to the life you wish to create, you will find that your thoughts begin to align with your words, that your feelings begin to follow your thoughts, and that your circumstances begin to reflect your inner state of consciousness. The renewal of your mind requires that you develop a consciousness of abundance, that you recognize the infinite nature of the universe and your rightful place as heir to all of its riches. For there is no scarcity in the divine mind, and therefore there should be no scarcity in your mind. There is no limitation in infinite intelligence, and therefore there should be no limitation in your thinking. And when you truly grasp this truth, you will stop seeing life as a competition where you must struggle and fight for your share, and you will begin to see it as an infinite reservoir from which you can draw according to your faith and understanding. Most people have been conditioned to believe in lack. They have been taught that there is not enough to go around, that they must work hard and sacrifice and settle for less than they desire, that wanting more is greedy or selfish or unrealistic, And these beliefs of limitation have been so deeply impressed upon their subconscious minds that they automatically reject or sabotage any good that comes their way, because they do not feel worthy of receiving it, or they fear that accepting it will deprive someone else. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that whenever something good happened to her, she immediately began to worry that something bad would follow, that she could not enjoy her blessings because she was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Dr. Murphy recognized that she had a deep-seated belief that good and bad must balance out, that she was not allowed to experience sustained prosperity or happiness, that life was a zero-sum game where every positive must be offset by a negative. And he worked with her to uproot this false belief and replace it with the understanding that the universe is infinite abundance, that there is no cosmic accountant keeping score, that she could experience increasing good without limit or penalty, and that her only obligation was to receive with gratitude and to share generously with others from the overflow of her abundance. The transformation of your mind from poverty consciousness to prosperity. Consciousness is one of the most important shifts you can make, for your beliefs about abundance and scarcity will determine not only your financial circumstances, but also your experience of health, relationships, opportunities, and every other aspect of your life, and you must systematically root out every thought of lack and replace it with thoughts of infinite supply, affirming daily that you live in an abundant universe, that there is enough for everyone, including you, that your good does not deprive anyone else of their good, and that you are a channel through which infinite abundance flows into the world. Your emotional state is the fuel that powers the creative process of your subconscious mind, for thoughts without feeling are like seeds without water. They may exist, but they will not germinate and grow, and this is why you must learn to combine your thoughts with the appropriate emotions if you wish to see them manifest in your experience. When you think about what you desire, you must also feel as if you already possess it. You must generate within yourself the emotional state that you would experience if your desire were already fulfilled. And you must maintain this feeling with sufficient intensity and duration to impress it deeply upon your subconscious mind. Many people make the mistake of thinking about what they want while simultaneously feeling the lack of it. They imagine their desired outcome, but they feel frustrated or doubtful or impatient because they do not yet see it in their physical reality. And this combination of positive thought with negative feeling creates a confused and contradictory message that neutralizes their creative power and produces little or no result. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been affirming prosperity for months but remained in the same impoverished state. And when Dr. Murphy questioned him closely, he discovered that the man would repeat his affirmations while feeling resentful toward wealthy people, while worrying about his bills, while looking at his bank account with disappointment. And Dr. Murphy explained that his negative emotions were canceling out his positive words, that his subconscious mind responds primarily to feeling rather than to mere words, that he must learn to feel wealthy while affirming wealth, to feel secure while declaring security, to feel grateful for abundance even before it appears in visible form, and that this feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret ingredient that activates the creative power of the subconscious mind. You must become skilled at generating emotion deliberately, at choosing how you will feel regardless of present circumstances, at dwelling in the feeling state that corresponds to your desired outcome until that feeling becomes your dominant emotional reality. And when you master this art of feeling, you will have mastered the key to transformation, for your feelings are the language your subconscious mind understands most clearly. And whatever you feel deeply and consistently, you must eventually experience in your outer world. The renewal of your mind is not complete until your new thoughts have penetrated so deeply into your subconscious that they become your automatic and habitual patterns. Until you no longer have to consciously choose positive thoughts, because positive thoughts arise naturally and spontaneously, until your new mental patterns express themselves without effort or strain, just as your old patterns once did. This is the point at which transformation becomes permanent rather than temporary, when you have not merely adopted new behaviors, but have become a new person with a new consciousness, when your identity itself has shifted from one who struggles to one who succeeds, from one who lacks to one who has abundance, from one who is sick to one who is healthy, and this transformation of identity is the ultimate goal of renewing your mind. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had experienced brief periods of success and happiness, followed by long periods of failure and misery. That her life seemed to be a cycle of ups and downs with no lasting improvement, and Dr. Murphy explained to her that she had been making superficial changes without transforming her fundamental self-concept, that she would rise to a certain level and then unconsciously sabotage herself because success did not match her inner image of who she was, that her subconscious mind was committed to maintaining consistency between her self-concept and her experience, and that until she changed her deep inner beliefs about herself and her worthiness and her capabilities, she would continue to oscillate between brief victories and familiar defeats. You must work persistently to change not just your thoughts about specific situations, but your thoughts about yourself, replacing the old self-image with a new self-image, seeing yourself as you wish to be rather than as you have been, identifying yourself with success and health and abundance and love, rather than with failure and sickness and poverty and loneliness. And as you maintain this new self-image with consistency and conviction, your subconscious mind will gradually accept it as true and will reorganize your entire life to bring it into alignment with your new identity. The process of renewing your mind requires faith, and faith is not merely intellectual agreement with an idea, but rather a deep inner knowing that transcends all evidence to the contrary. A certainty that exists independent of present circumstances. A conviction that what you are impressing upon your subconscious mind must inevitably manifest regardless of how impossible it may appear to your rational mind or to the observing world. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And when you have true faith, you do not waver or doubt. You do not look at present conditions and become discouraged. You do not allow the opinions of others to shake your conviction, but rather you remain steadfast in your inner knowing, maintaining your mental image and your feeling of the wish fulfilled with unwavering persistence until the invisible becomes visible and the inner becomes outer. Many people pray for what they desire, but they do not have faith that their prayer will be answered. They ask, but do not believe they will receive. They affirm, but secretly doubt. And this divided mind produces no result, because the subconscious mind responds only to what you genuinely believe and feel, not to what you merely say or hope. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had prayed for healing for years but remained sick, that he attended church faithfully and recited prayers daily, but saw no improvement in his condition, and Dr. Murphy asked him whether he truly believed he would be healed, or whether he was merely going through religious motions without real faith. And the man admitted that deep down he did not really believe healing was possible for him, that he prayed out of duty or desperation rather than conviction, that part of him had accepted his illness as permanent and incurable. And Dr. Murphy explained that his prayer was powerless because it lacked the essential ingredient of faith, that he was asking God to heal him while simultaneously believing that he would remain sick, and that this contradiction rendered his prayer ineffective. You must cultivate faith by repeatedly impressing your desired outcome upon your subconscious mind until faith arises naturally and spontaneously, until you feel absolute certainty that what you seek is already yours in the invisible realm and must eventually materialize in the visible realm. And this faith is not produced by effort or force, but rather by saturation, by so completely filling your mind with the image and feeling of your desire that there is no room left for doubt or fear or contrary belief. The Bible teaches that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And this means that your true thoughts are not the thoughts you think consciously or occasionally, but rather the thoughts you think habitually and unconsciously, the thoughts that have sunk from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, where they operate automatically and continuously, shaping your personality, your behavior, your reactions, and your entire experience of life. You may consciously affirm abundance while subconsciously believing in lack. You may consciously desire health while subconsciously identifying with sickness. You may consciously seek love while subconsciously feeling unworthy of it. And in every case, your subconscious belief will override your conscious desire and create your actual experience. The renewal of your mind must therefore penetrate beneath the surface level of conscious thought to the deeper level of subconscious belief. And this requires more than simply repeating affirmations mechanically or thinking positive thoughts superficially. It requires that you impress your new thoughts upon your subconscious with sufficient feeling and repetition that they become your automatic beliefs, your habitual patterns, your unconscious assumptions. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she affirmed daily that she was confident and successful, but continued to feel anxious and inadequate in social and professional situations. And when Dr. Murphy probed deeper, he discovered that while she was consciously saying words of confidence, she was subconsciously holding images of herself as awkward and inferior, replaying past embarrassments, anticipating future failures, and maintaining a self-concept rooted in shame and inadequacy. And he showed her that her conscious affirmations were like a thin coat of paint over a deeply ingrained pattern, that she must work to change not just her words, but her deep subconscious programming through persistent visualization, emotional involvement, and repetitive impression of her new self-image, until it became more real to her than her old identity. You must be patient with yourself in this process, understanding that you are working to reverse years or decades of conditioning, but you must also be persistent and consistent, impressing your new thoughts upon your subconscious mind every day without fail, using every tool at your disposal, including affirmation, visualization, meditation, and prayer, until the new patterns become as deeply embedded as the old patterns once were. Your mind is always creating. It cannot stop creating. It is always producing results in your life, whether you are aware of it or not, whether you direct it consciously or allow it to operate unconsciously. And this means that you are never in a neutral state, but always in a state of creation, always impressing something upon your subconscious mind, always generating the causes that will produce future effects. The question is not whether you will create, but rather what you will create. Whether you will create consciously or unconsciously, deliberately or accidentally, constructively or destructively. And the renewal of your mind is the process of taking conscious control of your creative power so that you create by design rather than by default. Most people create their lives unconsciously. They allow their minds to run on autopilot, thinking whatever thoughts happen to arise, reacting to circumstances rather than directing them, accepting whatever beliefs were programmed into them during childhood and never questioning or changing those beliefs. And then they wonder why their lives are filled with struggle and limitation and unhappiness, never realizing that they themselves are the creators of their experience through the unconscious operation of their own minds. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he felt like a victim of fate, that bad things kept happening to him through no fault of his own, that he was cursed or unlucky or destined to suffer. And Dr. Murphy challenged this belief by asking him to examine his habitual thought patterns. And as the man became honest with himself, he recognized that he spent most of his mental energy worrying about possible disasters, replaying past hurts, imagining worst-case scenarios, and reinforcing beliefs about his own inadequacy and unworthiness. And Dr. Murphy showed him that he was not a victim of external fate, but rather a victim of his own unconscious mental habits, that he was creating his own misfortune through the misuse of his creative power, and that once he understood this principle, he could begin to use his mind constructively instead of destructively, creating good instead of evil, abundance instead of lack, health instead of sickness, joy instead of sorrow. You must accept responsibility for your mental activity, recognizing that you are the operator of your own mind, that you can choose which thoughts to entertain and which to reject, that you can direct your imagination toward desirable outcomes rather than fearful ones, and that through this conscious direction of your mental power, you become the master of your fate rather than its victim. The transformation of your mind requires a spiritual foundation, for when you understand that you are not merely a physical body with a brain, but rather a spiritual being with access to infinite intelligence, when you recognize that your true nature is divine, and that you are connected to the source of all power and wisdom and love, you gain a perspective that transcends the limitations of material consciousness. and opens you to possibilities that your rational mind would dismiss as impossible. Prayer is not begging or pleading with a distant God who may or may not grant your request, but rather the practice of aligning your mind with the divine mind, impressing upon your subconscious the truth that you are one with infinite life, and that all the qualities and powers of that infinite life are available to you now. When you pray, you are not trying to change God's mind, but rather opening your own mind to receive what God has already made available. You are not asking for something outside yourself, but rather claiming what already exists within you. You are not seeking permission, but rather accepting your inheritance as a child of the infinite. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had prayed for years for her financial situation to improve, but nothing changed, that she felt frustrated with God for not answering her prayers. And Dr. Murphy explained that God had already answered her prayer by creating a universe of infinite abundance, and by giving her a mind capable of appropriating that abundance, that her failure was not God's failure, but rather her own failure to use the creative power she had been given, that she was praying from a consciousness of lack rather than from a consciousness of abundance, and that until she changed her consciousness, her circumstances could not change. You must approach prayer not as a desperate petition, but as a confident declaration, not as a hopeful wish, but as a certain knowing, not as a future possibility, but as a present reality. And you must feel the truth of what you are declaring, sensing the presence of your answered prayer, giving thanks for its manifestation even before you see any physical evidence, and maintaining this consciousness of answered prayer until it hardens into fact in your experience. The renewal of your mind is a journey from bondage to freedom, from limitation to expansion, from fear to love, from ignorance to understanding. And along this journey, you will encounter resistance both from within yourself and from the world around you, for your old thought patterns will not surrender easily. Your subconscious programming will fight to maintain itself, and the people in your life who are invested in your remaining as you have always been will consciously or unconsciously attempt to pull you back into your former state. You must be prepared for this resistance, and you must meet it with unwavering determination, refusing to be discouraged by temporary setbacks, refusing to listen to the voices that tell you that change is impossible, or that you are fooling yourself, or that you should accept your limitations and stop striving for something better. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had begun to practice the principles of mental renewal with great enthusiasm, but became discouraged when his family and friends mocked his efforts and told him he was wasting his time with positive thinking nonsense. And Dr. Murphy encouraged him to persist regardless of external opinion, explaining that those who have never transformed their own minds cannot understand or support the transformation of others, that he must find his validation within himself rather than seeking it from people who are themselves trapped in limited thinking, and that as he continued his practice and began to demonstrate results in his life, the same people who now mocked him would eventually ask him to teach them what he had learned. You must develop an inner conviction that is stronger than any outer opposition, a faith that cannot be shaken by criticism or doubt or apparent failure, a commitment to your own transformation that persists through every obstacle and continues until the work is complete. And you must remember always that the power that created the universe dwells within you, and that no external force can prevent you from manifesting your desire if you remain faithful to your inner vision and refuse to accept any evidence to the contrary. The renewal of your mind requires that you live from the end, that you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, that you think and act and speak as if you already are what you wish to become, as if you already have what you wish to possess, as if your desire has already been granted in the invisible realm and is now simply making its way into visible manifestation. This is not pretense or self-deception, but rather the recognition that creation occurs first in consciousness and only afterward in physical form, that everything you see in the material world existed first as a thought, an image, a feeling in someone's mind, and that by assuming the consciousness of your desire fulfilled, you are actually setting in motion the creative forces that must eventually produce the physical equivalent of your mental state. Most people make the mistake of waiting for their circumstances to change before they change their thinking. They say, "I will feel abundant when I have money," or "I will feel confident when I succeed," or "I will feel loved when I find a partner." But this is a reversal of the creative process. For your feelings create your circumstances rather than your circumstances creating your feelings. And if you wait for conditions to change before you change your consciousness, you will wait forever, because conditions cannot change until consciousness changes. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she was lonely and desperately wanted to be married, but felt that she could not be happy until she met her ideal partner. And Dr. Murphy instructed her to reverse this thinking, to begin feeling loved and cherished and partnered right now, to live in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled even though she was physically alone, to set her table for two, to make space in her closet for another person's belongings, to feel grateful for the wonderful relationship she was now experiencing in her imagination, and to maintain this consciousness with such conviction that it became more real to her than her present solitude. And within a short time, she met a man who corresponded exactly to the consciousness she had been maintaining. You must understand that your subconscious mind creates your outer world to match your inner world, that it brings into your experience whatever you are conscious of being, and that by assuming the consciousness of your desire fulfilled, you are actually claiming your desire and setting in motion all the forces necessary to manifest it in your experience. And this assumption must be maintained not occasionally, but persistently, not with doubt, but with conviction, not as a hopeful possibility, but as an accomplished fact. Your mind is the connecting link between the invisible and the visible, between the formless and the formed, between the spiritual and the material, and through your mind, the infinite possibilities of the universal mind are reduced to specific manifestations in your personal experience. You are not separate from the creative power of the universe, but rather you are an individualized expression of that power, a focal point through which infinite intelligence operates in a unique and personal way. And when you understand this truth, you realize that you are not powerless or limited or dependent upon external conditions, but rather you are a creative center with access to all the wisdom and power and substance of the infinite. The renewal of your mind is the process of remembering your true nature, of awakening from the dream of limitation and separation, of recognizing that you are not a helpless creature struggling for survival in a hostile universe, but rather a divine being temporarily focused in a human form, endowed with the ability to shape your experience through the creative use of your consciousness. Many people live their entire lives without discovering this truth. They identify themselves with their body and their personality and their history. They believe themselves to be separate, isolated individuals, cut off from the source of life. And this false identification produces all the suffering and limitation they experience. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he felt small and insignificant and powerless in the face of the world's problems, that he could not see how his thoughts or beliefs could possibly matter in the grand scheme of things. And Dr. Murphy reminded him that the same intelligence that created galaxies and orchestrates the movement of planets and causes seeds to grow into mighty trees operates through human consciousness, that he was not a separate self, but rather a unique expression of the one infinite life, that his thoughts did matter because they were the thoughts of God thinking through him, and that by aligning his individual consciousness with universal consciousness, he could participate in the creative process and bring forth into manifestation whatever he held in his mind with faith and conviction. You must claim your divine inheritance, recognizing that you are heir to all the riches of infinite mind, that you have been given dominion over your experience, that within you dwells a power greater than any circumstance or condition, and that through the renewal of your mind, you activate this power and direct it toward the fulfillment of your highest aspirations. The transformation of your mind is complete when you have so thoroughly impressed your new thought patterns upon your subconscious that they have become your automatic and natural way of thinking, when you no longer have to struggle or strive to maintain positive thoughts because positive thoughts have become your habitual mental state, when you have built within yourself a consciousness that automatically rejects fear and embraces faith, that automatically sees abundance rather than lack, that automatically expects good rather than evil, and at this point, you will have become a new creature, your old self having passed away and a new self having emerged, and this new self will naturally and effortlessly create experiences that correspond to its transformed consciousness. This is the goal toward which all your efforts at mental renewal have been directed, not merely to have occasional positive thoughts or temporary improvements, but to undergo a complete metamorphosis of consciousness, a fundamental shift in your identity and your relationship to life, a transformation so thorough and so deep that you can never return to your former state because you have literally become a different person. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been practicing mental and spiritual principles for many years and could now look back and see that she was completely different from the fearful, anxious, worried person she had once been. That positive thinking was no longer something she had to work at, but had become her natural and automatic response to life. That she no longer struggled to maintain faith because faith had become her permanent state of consciousness. And that this transformation had occurred so gradually that she had not noticed the change while it was happening, but only recognized it when she looked back at who she had been and compared it to who she had become. You must persist in the renewal of your mind with patience and consistency, understanding that transformation is a process rather than an event, that you are building new neural pathways and establishing new habitual patterns, that you are reconditioning your subconscious mind through repeated impression and emotional conviction, and that if you continue this practice faithfully without wavering or doubting, you will inevitably reach a point where the transformation becomes permanent and irreversible, where your new consciousness becomes as firmly established as your old consciousness once was, and where you manifest in your outer world the harmony and abundance and joy that you have cultivated in your inner world, and you will know then that you have been truly transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you have claimed your birthright as a child of infinite intelligence, and that you have learned to use the creative power within you to fashion a life of purpose and meaning and fulfillment, demonstrating through your own experience the eternal truth that as you think in your heart, so you are, and proving that anyone who is willing to do the inner work of mental renewal can rise above any limitation and manifest any good thing that they can conceive in their imagination and accept in their consciousness.